there, and welcome back to another episode of Cutting Through It. I'm Sherry Brody, and today I want to share with you something that I heard in the salon the other day. Have you ever just thought to yourself, help, I wish I hadn't even have started this service on this client? You know, those clients that you do and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I never would have even taken her. Last week, I witnessed a stylist near me having one of those days, the kind that can completely drain you and infect the entire energy of the salon. The stylist had a client who booked a color service that ended up turning into a nearly 4-hour ordeal. The client was practically in tears at one point, and the stylist was visibly frustrated. Sure, the client liked her hair in the end, but the stylist, she was still upset about the situation 2 days later. She was in the back room talking about it. And I feel like this scenario is all too common in our industry. Sometimes it's not about whether you can technically deliver the service a client asks for. It's about whether you should. And I want to share with you today in this episode some cues that can help you determine if you should proceed with the service or if you should not. Because saying no sometimes, it's going to really help you out on alleviating some really unnecessary stress. Are you a hairstylist who's working super hard, but you're still struggling with those holes in your books? Maybe you're wondering to yourself, how do I get more clients in my chair? How am I going to build a loyal clientele? But most importantly, how to create the kind of income and freedom that you dreamed about when you first started in this career. If so, you are in the right place. My name is Sherry Brody. I'm a hairstylist. I've been a salon owner, and I am someone who's rebuilt her clientele more than one time. I've made many mistakes along my journey, and I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. And I've discovered what it really takes to build a successful career working behind the chair. Each week, I will share practical strategies, real-life experiences, and the systems that help hairstylists build confidence, attract the right clients, and create a fully booked chair. If that sounds like you, step behind the chair with me, and let's start building that business that you've been dreaming of. Hey, I've got a question for you. Have you ever looked at your books and wondered, what am I doing wrong? Maybe you're a brand new hairstylist staring at an empty chair. Or maybe you've had to rebuild your clientele after moving salons. Or maybe you've been doing hair for years, but your books still feel like a roller coaster. You have good weeks, then slow weeks, and you're working so hard but not seeing the consistent growth you're hoping for. If that's you, I understand exactly how that feels. I've had to rebuild my clientele several times throughout my career. Most recently, after 27 years behind the chair, I found myself starting over from an empty book. The difference was I already knew it worked. I went from an empty chair to fully booked within 6 months, and I want to share with you the 3 things that made the biggest difference. I can't teach you my entire system in one workshop, but I can show you the 3 foundational things I focused on that helped me build a steady stream of clients once again. I've also included a simple 30-day action plan to help you stop guessing and start taking the right steps towards building a fully booked chair. So if you're tired of worrying about your books, wondering where your next client is coming from, and you're ready to build your business with more confidence, I'd love to invite you to watch my free workshop. Just head on over to onpointhairbySherry.com. That's Sherry spelled S-H-E-R-R-I. You'll also find the link in the show notes below. I hope to see you there. All right, so I want to share with you 3 things to watch for before even taking a client. You may say to yourself, like, oh my gosh, well, how do I tell them? Well, you know, once you've experienced a client that drove you to the brink of insanity, it won't be that hard. You just have to remind yourself about it. Trust me. The first one is, the 3 things to watch for are, number 1, the consultation is more than just listening. So if you've watched any of my episodes, I will link some in the show notes that you can go if you really want some help on your consultations. You'll find those in the show notes. But consultations are a huge one. And one of the things that I want you to pay attention to when a new client comes in is, and it's crucial, is to pay attention to both the client's words and their body languages. Take the client I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, for example. When she walked in, I remember seeing her. Like, she just immediately, I could sense that she was very nervous. And she was just kind of wringing her hands. She didn't have much eye contact at all. And her shoulders were kind of slumped. And because I was working right next to this gal, like I was listening kind of to her voice, and it was kind of hesitant. And so if you have a client that comes in and, they're asking for a big change or something like that, and you sense in them that their body language is not at all mirroring what their words are, these are indicators that you really need to pay attention to, because it was an indicator that she was super uncertain. And the stylist, she didn't notice any of these signs, If she had taken the time to really pay attention to it, you know what? She could have guided the conversation in a completely different way. If this were my client, I would have noticed it. I would have steered her towards something that was much more manageable and realistic to her. I would have asked her some open-ended questions and really got eye level with her and really got her to share with me why she wanted it. And also I would have shared with her, I want you to understand what you're asking me to do. In this particular situation, this client she wanted to be completely blonde. And that took a lot. But this gal had no idea that it took bleach and that it was going to take a lightener. There's going to take a long time and several processes to get what she wanted. It wasn't really explained to her. So that would be the first thing that I would recommend doing is, making sure that if you have somebody like that, to really hesitate before you even start and really delve in and make sure that, number one, she really understands what she's asking for and making her understand what the maintenance of it is going to be. And just, I can say this till I'm blue in the face, but body language, guys, it speaks volumes. So if they're confident in what they're asking for, you'll tell by their body language. And if they're not, you'll tell if you can tell if they're unsure. So when you're looking at their body language, ask yourself, do they seem confident what they're asking for, or do they seem unsure? This can really help you assess if they're truly ready for the change that they're requesting. The second one is the client listening to you, or are they trying to take control? This one is huge, 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 huge. If you have a client that sits in the chair, and I know if you are a hairstylist that's newer, this is a harder one, and this is something that you will get better with over time, and the first few times are the hardest. I'm not going to tell you that it's easy. I'm going to tell you that it's a lot harder to deal with a client that tries to control you. So some clients come in thinking they know more than you, probably because they have seen a hairstylist on Instagram or watched a DIY video and believe they have all the answers to what they need. So they'll come in and say, I want this haircut and I want you to cut it like this, and I don't want you to use these scissors and I want you to use this. Those clients. These clients tend to try to control the situation and tell you how to do the service instead of trusting your expertise. And I'm going to tell you right now that if you have a client like this, don't let them intimidate you and don't let them steal your confidence. You have to remember that you are the one you are licensed. You are the one that's got the experience, and you have to be strong enough to share with them. Like, for instance, I have been doing this a long time, so it's a little bit easier for me, but I had a new client recently that started to do this with me, and I just looked at her and I said, I'm sorry, but I cannot cut your hair because what you want and what you're trying to tell me how to do this, you're not going to be happy, and I can see why you haven't been happy. And she just kind of looked at me, and I just said, if you want me to I think this haircut that you want would look great on you, but I'm not going to tell you, I don't want you to tell me how to do what I know what to do. What you're asking me to do, the way you were asking me to do it, you're not going to be happy with it. I needed to use a razor on her hair. I needed to use my blending shears. I needed to do point cutting. There was a lot I needed to do to create the look that she wanted. But because this gal had a bad experience years ago and she'd been watching all these DIY videos, she felt like she needed to control the situation and tell me how it was. At the end of the thing, she ended up succumbing and letting me cut her hair, and she did come back to me a few times, but eventually I didn't keep her as a client because she just kind of drove me nuts. That's all there is to it. But anyways, this is a huge red flag. And as a professional, these are some of the first boundaries we learn as a hairstylist. And I think all throughout our career, no matter how experienced we are, sometimes, we establish these boundaries, but they can be, if we get in our head about it, can be kind of intimidating, but you've got to remember that you are the professional. And so make sure that you establish your boundaries for yourself and within your business, and you clearly explain to your clients what you can and cannot be done based on their hair type, condition, or limitations of the service. So what I mean by that is, like the gal that I was talking to you about, the color that ended up being a nightmare for her, this stylist and the entire salon for that day. Had the stylist stopped and saw that the client was nervous and that there was stuff going on, and taken the time to explain what could be done and what couldn't be done, and that she probably would have ended up doing a full highlight, because at the end of the day, that's really what the client was wanting. She didn't expect what it had turned out to be like. But anyway, when you do this, and if the client refuses to listen or they insist on something unrealistic, don't be afraid to walk away from the client. Don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do this service. I know it's hard sometimes because you might be in a place of really needing the money, but I'm going to tell you that there's no amount of money that's worth the stress of a difficult client who doesn't trust you and your expertise. Or the worst is the potential harm from a scathing review, because your reviews are what people check when they come to see you. And I'm going to tell you from my own personal experience that you could do your best to try to make this person happy, but there are times where you just can't make them happy. And they're going to write a bad review about you. And you know what? Those stick around. And you don't want a bad review. So it's not worth the money. So I'm just going to tell you, this is how you grow as a hairstylist, is setting your boundaries and really paying attention to your client's body language and taking the time to explain things. And if they're still refusing and they're unrealistic, don't be afraid to walk away from it. Trust me on this one. The third one is trust your gut. I think this is probably the most important lesson that I can share with you. In the situation that I witnessed, the stylist realized after some reflection, we were talking about it in the back room, she should have known right away the approach for the client along, but she didn't. She had lost her confidence. She had let the client dictate the service. And honestly, guys, as a result, she did end up losing both the client and her peace of mind, because I watched this situation unfold, and this gal was very experienced and very good, but this client came in and she was just so strong in her personality that the stylist lost her. She lost her confidence for a moment. Inside, she told me, I knew I shouldn't have done it, but she lost that confidence in herself. And at the end, she was so stressed out, and it just was awful for her. And it was a big learning situation for her. So I'm going to tell you that your intuition is one of your most valuable tools as a hairstylist. So if something doesn't feel right, guys, it probably isn't. Trust your gut and don't be afraid to stand your ground. You are the professional, and your job is to deliver not just a service, but an outcome that is realistic for your client and achievable. All right? At the end of the day, like I said, that stylist that I mentioned, she learned from that experience, and she made a promise to herself that she was going to trust her instincts moving forward. She was never going to let that happen again. And you know what? She hasn't. So the takeaway from this episode is, don't let, in the last episode, I was talking about, how our self-talk really makes a big impact on the success on our business. And so I really want to encourage you, like, if you get in a tough situation like this, and if you haven't, you will. I'm just telling you, like, this is just part of being a hairstylist. It's just part of the business. Don't let the experience shake your confidence. Instead, I want you to learn from it. I want you to grow from it. And this is where it reinforces to yourself, dang it, I'm going to trust in my own abilities. This is part of just growing and becoming a successful hairstylist. So if you happen to have something like that happen, sit down. I always say, journal about it, get your frustrations about it, learn from it, and the next time you're going to make such a better decision. All right? And I want you to know you're not alone. You know what? If you are feeling like you are, find a mentor or a colleague that you can share your thoughts with, because that will make all the difference in the world. And if you are looking for inspiration on how to deal with situations like this, I encourage you to head over to my website, On Point Hair by Sherry. It's spelled Sherri. I do a pro tips newsletter every week, and I'm sharing tips like this just to help you, encourage you in your journey as a hairstylist. And if you are in a place where you're wanting to build, you're building your clientele, or maybe you've relocated and you just really want some inspiration on how to build your books quicker, I just created a free master class, and it's in it. I share with you the top 3 things that I did when I rebuilt, that took me, where I restarted from a completely empty chair to fully booked within 6 months. And I'd love to share that with you. And if that interests you, just head over to my website, onpointhairbySherri, SHERRI.com. And I will also list those in my show notes below. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. I hope this episode encouraged you today and reminded you that you're not alone behind the chair. And if it helped you, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with another hairstylist who may need encouragement too. And remember, success behind the chair is built one client, one conversation, and one day at a time. I'll see you guys in the next episode.